Seasonal decor seems to be a pretty big part of the Urban Elements and Applique Elements brand. We have been doing all kinds of traditional and fun and novelty designs for Valentine's Day, for Thanksgiving, for Halloween, for Christmas, and different designers have their own favorite holidays that they like to decorate for. So we have a ton of seasonal designs. So for that reason, because we have such a wealth, such a great resource of things to do in that area, that is why I chose to, and I continue to choose to use these as samples, because they seem to appeal to people. But also, I keep showing different formats that we offer these designs in. So I have done Christmas stockings. We have a free pattern for stocking itself on the website. This was the printed home paper for the stocking, and this is just a little cardstock that I made for my template. And that is just to make a generic stocking shape, which is what I did here in this particular stocking. This was one of the videos that we've done previously, and this is using the laser cut and pre-fused applique. So this stocking that I made was silk dupioni, just to show that another surface that the applique could be fused onto. And I kind of like the sheen of the dupioni. So we have done the laser cut applique. We have done, we have different tearaway patterns. Now the tearaway could be used either on the domestic machine or on a long arm machine. So either with home sewing or the long arm machine, you could get these patterns. It is a paper, a tearaway paper with a design on it, and you would adhere the paper to your quilting sandwich with 505 temporary spray adhesive. The fusible batting is a good type of batting to use in these products, because you don't have to worry about pin basting and not being able to see a pin because the paper's in the way. So we have done these with the tearaway stabilizer. The tearaway is a single use. You sew through it on the home machine or your long arm machine, following the line, and when you're done sewing, you just tear the paper away. So we've done stockings with the tearaway patterns, and this is an example of what that paper looks like. This particular one is called Holiday Garland Stocking, and it's one of the tearaways. We have multiple designs in the tearaway. We also have the same stockings available as a paper pattern. The paper pattern would be used on a long arm machine. They would go in the back of the machine just the same way as an edge to edge or pantograph would. And you would stitch out the design from the back, following the panto design on the paper. These are individual stockings. And again, we have Holiday Garland and Moulin Rouge. I've shown how we do these as well. So we have the tearaway and the paper panto. I've shown how to do couching on the long arm machine with a digital design. This particular one, I used a kind of a variegated yarn. It didn't change color real quick, but it did couch really beautifully. I have done just a digital design with variegated thread, and these are each piece is sandwiched with the batting, so you get that design would really pop. And then I will sew these together. They would be sewn together inside out and then flipped, so that the seam allowance would be on the inside, and then you would get your design on the outside. You can still see the quilting design because that is my bobbin thread. And I also had samples as well from the Urban Elements office. This was made before I started doing videos, but it's a sample that they made using one of the designs as well. And of course this would have been digital also. So that brings us to today. what I'm going to attempt to do is try to get our embroidery formatted design to the new Bernina 770, and I'm going to stitch out the stocking pattern using an embroidery machine, because we do have a whole new selection of embroidery formatted quilting designs. People have been asking us for many years for us to start releasing these types of things, either on a disc or for download. We don't have them on disc right at the moment, but it's a possibility for the future. But we do have a wide selection of designs, and so I'm going to start today with the first one, and it's going to be a stocking. The stocking, it gives me a nice start and finish start point, and it's a way for me to start learning the machine as well, which is what we're going to be doing it on today. And it has been a minute for me, more than a minute, since I have been using an embroidery machine. So, but because we have such frequent requests for this, that's why we're going to be presenting some of these videos. Now, future down the line, I'm going to be showing you how to do an edge-to-edge design, connecting the design using the embroidery module. But guess what? I have to perfect the process myself because I have a long arm machine, and generally, just for ease of use, that's how I would do an edge-to-edge design. But I know not everyone has a long arm machine, but many of you do have some type of an embroidery module. So that was the impetus for us releasing these designs, and it's why we're going to be providing this training as well. One of the things I would say, if you want to play around with some of the embroidery formatted designs, is that if you type free in the search engine, you're going to get the free designs that we offer. But be careful, because some of the designs we have free in the name, like Let Freedom Ring. That wouldn't mean that it's necessarily free. But we do have a whole selection, I think there's about 56 free embroidery formatted designs. In fact, I think everything in our free digital download section is or has been formatted for embroidery use, except for something like a whole cloth, which wouldn't be applicable. So there are some free designs that you could download and practice with. I am going to do a couple things. I'm going to use the fusible batting again, and I have a little quilt sandwich ready. So I'm just going to take a few minutes and walk us through using the fusible batting. I believe it's Hobbs. And I just had some remnants from my last time I did a fusible batting. So I'm going to fuse my little quilt sandwich, which is large enough to do my stocking. I'm going to be using my green that I always think of, Urban Elements. I don't know why. It's probably a misconception, but it's stuck in my head. So whenever I see this green, I think of Urban Elements, and they may or may not have ever used it. That's a whole nother story. But I'm going to do my quilt sandwich, and then I'm going to pause out here, and we're going to go into where my computer is, and I'm going to walk you through finding the embroidery formatted designs. We're going to download one, we're going to unzip it, and we're going to change the name of the file, because all of Urban Elements designs have inventory control numbers associated with the name, which is how they pay royalties to the designer. That's their end of it, but we don't need that. So I'm going to change the name of my design, eliminating the inventory control number. Sometimes I like to include the size if the space permits, but I will also show you how to figure out what size design you need, and that information will be in the PDF file. Generally, there's a sizing 1 through 6, and each of those sizes is designed for a different size hoop, which would relate to the type of machine that you had. So you'd have to know about what approximate size you could quilt out in your hoop, and that would be the design size file that you opened, either 1 through 6. I would probably be able to do the 6 because I'm going to be using a mega hoop, and I want to make my stocking the largest that I can for display purposes. So we'll go fuse first, then we'll go inside and do some of the computer stuff, and then hopefully we'll get back out here with our USB stick and load it into the machine and get our embroidery formatted quilting design started. Once we actually get it onto the machine and it stitches out, that will definitely be the shortest part of the video. The other part of the process is learning how to get from there to here. So we're going to move the camera and get my fabric fused, and then we can move on to the computer stuff. At this point, we need to make a quilt sandwich. So I have a layer of cotton, a layer of batting, and a layer of cotton, and that'll be our 3 layers, which is the definition of a quilt. And there are a couple ways that people traditionally baste. You can put these 3 layers together and thread baste, which I don't want to do, and then stitch over. Some people pin baste, but I certainly don't want to do that and have the pins interfering with the hoop as we're hooping the fabric. And I don't want to have to remove those pins from the area that I'm going to be stitching on. Another way would be spray basting, and to do that we would use a temporary spray adhesive, spray the backing first, lay our cotton over top of it, our batting, and then our top layer after we sprayed this again. The problem with temporary spray adhesive is it may gum up the needle a little bit, but also it is temporary. So if you didn't stitch right away, the temporary spray adhesive can evaporate, and you're left with not having any connection between the back, middle, and top, which is what we want. We want to have those 3 layers connected together. So what I'm going to do, I've already ironed my back piece, and I have a stubborn wrinkle there, but I'm not going to worry about it. We're not stressing today. I have my Hobbs fusible batting. I just happen to have this piece, which is kind of the perfect size, left over from the last thing I did. I'm going to lay that on top of my backing, and then I'm going to lay this over top, and this here, if it touched the iron, would stick to the iron. So I'm going to go ahead and get my Teflon pressing sheet. And because I'm going to be ironing through a Teflon pressing sheet, I do want to give the iron a bit more time to do its work. The heat of the iron is going to have to penetrate through my Teflon pressing sheet, through my top layer of cotton, through the fusible batting, and through to the back as well. So I do need to give it time. You could test that at 5 to 7 seconds. Let it cool and see how your adhesion is. If you need to do it a little bit longer, of course you could test that. You can't really test it while it's hot because it hasn't cooled down and hasn't stuck yet. But I'm going to go ahead and keep moving on, fusing my quilt sandwich. And after I get this done, I'll probably flip it over and do it again from the back just to make sure I've got good connection between all 3 layers. And then we'll get moving on to showing you the hoop, and then we'll move inside and get the design found on the website and unzipped and onto a USB stick. So I won't bore you with my pressing, but that will be the process we're going through. We are at the Urban Elements website. I have opened up the Quilting Designs E2E, the edge to edge, and if you look in our subcategories, you see a file called free. If we open up the free files in the subcategory, what you're going to see are a lot of the designs that are free to download for digital format. So I'm just going to hit Bean Sprout, open that up. You'll see that we have self-print. So if you wanted to use this as a panto, you could print your own paper at home and connect the papers to make whatever size panto you needed for your type of table. If you see Bean Sprout here as digital, that is for a digital computer system. My particular system is an IntelliQuilter on a Bernina, so we would select this download for that purpose. And here we have embroidery download, and this would be this same design, but the format would be for an embroidery module or embroidery machine, so you would select there. But what I'm going to be doing is showing you how to, and as I said, these are free designs. All of them would be free to use, and this is a great way to practice the process of downloading a file if you wanted to. I'm going to go ahead and punch in stocking, because what we're going to download is a stocking pattern, and the internet is pulling that up ever so slowly. And let's see. I have a specific one I'm looking for. The one I'm looking for is Avalon 1. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and open it up. Avalon 1 is available as a digital. This would be for a computerized long arm system. It is available as an embroidery design and as a paper panto. The paper panto would be for use behind the long arm machine with a laser light. But it is here, the stocking embroidery format that we want for use on the embroidery module. Now, when you download this, you're going to get all the different sizes that this is available for in this single purchase. Now, right at the moment, you'll see this is on sale for $5.25. Regular price is $7. Depending on when you view this, this may or may not be the case. They're currently running a seasonal sale, and all of the seasonal items were 25% off. But we run multiple sales throughout the year, so whether it's $5.25 or $7, that will depend on the day at which you download it. So we would go ahead and add this to the add to cart, and you'll see it appears up here in the cart, and then you could go through the process of purchasing this item. I always recommend that you sign into your account if you don't have an account to create one. And the reason is not for us to track you, but for us to help you. If you have an account, we constantly maintain a library of your purchases. So in the future, if you came back to this stocking and you signed in, it would say right here that you had previously purchased this item. If you had a problem at home with a USB stick or a computer, or something happened to your entire house and you wanted to re-download your files, all you have to do is go back to your account to downloadable purchases under your account, and you would be able to download these items again forever. So we maintain a list of all your items. We allow you to re-download them if you need to, and we remind you that you've already purchased them, because believe me, if you like something, it's not uncommon to purchase it more than once. That's why we give you that really great indicator. Another thing down here, you could add something to your wish list and send an email to your friends and family letting them know what items are on your wish list for holiday, birthday, Christmas, whatever. Also, we have a design wall that lets you put up a quilt from a photograph from your computer, and then you could sample different different digital patterns on top of it. We do have a video on how that works. After you purchase an item on the Urban Elements website and you've signed into your account, you can go to your account, go to the left-hand side to My Downloadable Files, and when you click on that, you'll see all of the purchases that you've made using your account, and each one of them will have a download. So when you click on the download, you will get a file in your download box similar to this one here, Avalon 1 Stocking. So I double click on that to open it. And the only thing that I could open right now at this point without unzipping it would be my PDF file. And you can see here the PDF file still has the inventory control number on it, but I've already extracted this. But when I double click extract, it's going to go ahead and open up these items to be extracted, and it's going to ask me if I want to replace the files or because I've already done this, but I'm going to go ahead and replace the files. This is the new file. These are already all unzipped, so I can go ahead and work now in this new file. And you can see here that I have one of these where I've already removed the inventory control number. This inventory control number is only used for inner office work. It is how they keep track of designs so they can pay royalties to the designer. So you can see how I would eliminate that is highlight the PDF file, then I'm going to left click, or is it right click, to rename, and then I want to keep the E because that stands for embroidery, but I'm just going to backspace out the inventory control number because I don't need that in my system. I can shorten it this way. Sometimes that inventory control number precedes the name, and sometimes it comes after, but at any rate we don't need it, so I remove it. So I could click anywhere out there, and now I can double click on the PDF and show you what information is in there. This is what is contained on the PDF file. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control P, which will open up my printer, and I can print out a copy of this by selecting print. Then I can keep this in a little book with some of my other items. While my paper is printing out, I can show you that the inventory control number is still up here on top. The name of the pattern, Avalon 1. It's a stocking. It was copyrighted in 2016. It was designed by Patricia, Ritter, and Natalie, Gorman. Patricia digitized it. It was formatted and packaged for Urban Elements. And then you have the design here of the stocking. And then, very important, you have the 6 sizes here. This has both the metric and the English standard sizes. So you would have to know what size design your embroidery hoop would stitch out. And so you have 6 options. I believe that the big hoop that I have would stitch out size number 6. And so I'm going to need that information later when I get ready to download my design. But at this point, I've printed out my copy of the PDF file, so I can close this out, and then I can go. Now each one of these sizes has multiple formatted designs in it. So depending on what machine you have, I have Bernina, which uses the ART file. So I'm going to double click on size number 6, and then I'm going to go to the ART file, and I'm going to highlight that and rename it because I don't need that inventory control information on there. And I can just click anywhere outside, and that will rename the item. And now I can highlight the item again. I'm going to click copy, and I'm going to put a USB stick into my USB port on the computer, and when I do that, over here you're going to see a new drop-down menu that's going to say that we have a USB stick in there. And this is different items in my folder. I'm just going to click on here and put paste, and that is going to put that ART file into the USB stick, and then I'm going to go ahead and eject the USB stick, and then I can take that out to the Bernina, put the USB stick in the USB port, and because it only recognizes specific types of files, that should be the only thing that comes up in the system when I turn on the Bernina. Well, you've walked through the process of finding the designs on the Urban Elements website. I showed you both a collection of the free embroidery designs for you to download and try, but also I downloaded one that is not free. It's one that's available for purchase. This one is called Avalon, and it's a tree stocking. And part of the reason that I chose this is because I'm on a little bit of a learning curve as well. So we're going to start with some of the simpler types of embroidery designs to quilt out before we get to the more complicated ones, which would be connecting an edge-to-edge panto type design with the hoop. So we downloaded the PDF. On this, it doesn't really matter as much if you take the inventory control number off as it does with the long arm, because it just appears on the screen the same way as it is written on the website, but it doesn't come up alphabetically. It's not stored on the machine. So I'm not going to have to be looking for it. It is on my USB stick. But I still like to do that. It's a good habit for me to stay in when I'm using the long arm machine. I printed off my PDF that has the design on it, but also here it has the information size 1 through 6, and that has the hoop size. And the hoop size is going to be wholly dependent on what kind of machine you have. So you would know what the maximum size your hoop is. You would also know what the maximum size your design was. So once you open up that size, then it opens up a new file folder with all of the different formats. And I had said that I thought this was going to run on the ART file, and that was not true. It was, I believe, DST for the Bernina, but I did have to look that up. So I had to repeat the process to get the information onto the USB stick because the ART did not read. So I have my machine on, I have my USB stick, and now what I'm going to do is plug my USB stick into the USB port. And I'll need my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. Once you have the USB stick, this is the embroidery functions here. I have the alphabet, the designs that are already loaded on the machine that came from the factory, and these would be my favorite designs that I could store on there. If I wanted to repeat this stocking multiple times, I could save it on the computer. But I'm going to go ahead and hit the USB stick, and you'll be able to see here that I brought in 2 different formats of the design, and I also brought it in 2 different sizes. So I'm going to size this on the computer, but I could go ahead and open up any one of them, and you'll be able to see that the design is just a little bit too big for the hoop that I'm using. And I'm going to go ahead and click on the hoop, and I'm going to switch it to Maxi, which is what I'm using. And so now it will say Maxi hoop there. And also I'm going to hit the eye so I can go in and edit it. This allows me to move the design left and right, up and down. If I needed to rotate it, mirror image it on the vertical or the horizontal axis, or throw it away. What I am going to do is hit this icon here, which is going to size it. And so I'm going to decrease the size until it fits in the hoop. And right here we are at that point. So I can go ahead and X out of that and get ready to sew. The next thing I need to do is hoop my fabric. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. The cool thing about the 770 is it has a little magnetic space here that holds the stylus. So all you have to do is drop it on that section, and you always have it ready at hand. So I have my PDF that shows how the design's going to sew out, and I have the quilt sandwich that I prepared for making the stocking. So now I'm just going to go ahead and this is the hooping system, the Maxi, and you just tighten it by the knob here, and when you want to release it, you just push in these two pieces here, and it releases the hoop so you could tension your new fabric. So I'm just going to position this roughly in the middle of this piece, pick the whole sandwich up and put it into the frame, and then you would just tighten it by turning the knobs. Now, as I said earlier, it's been a minute since I've done much embroidery. And in fact, the only thing that I've done on this machine so far was to make a quilt label for a quilt that I needed to send off. So I used this machine to do that, not only to get my label done, but also just so I could refamiliarize myself with this new machine. I've had embroidery module Berninas for many years, but I haven't used them as much recently because I did most of my quilting on the machine, and I've gotten kind of bad about doing quilt labels. But I'm going to get back in the practice of it. So I have my fabric now. You can see it's nice and tensioned on both sides. I do have all three layers in the hoop. It hooped really nicely. There's no need for stabilizer. So the next thing I need to do is go ahead and get this ready to put on the machine, and we can get this stitching out. So I have my fabric in the hoop, and I'm not sure if it's going to ask me to check the hoop again. So we'll see in just a second. So it is checking the hoop. Now I can go ahead, I pushed the sew button, and let's see, it's asking me to push the green button. And it's off and running. Now it says this particular design is going to take about 7 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and let that stitch out. So this is actually quilting. It's quilting through all three layers as it stitches. I'm using, this particular thread is a glide thread. I'm using glide over isocord just because it happened to be the color that I had in the drawer at the moment. And this stocking is going to be a little bit smaller than the pattern on the website, but that's okay. That's always going to depend on the size of your machine capabilities, what size these designs will maximum sew out. But you can see we're getting beautiful stitches. I know this is often mesmerizing when you're doing embroidery. When I used to do it, I used to just go into a trance as the machine was zipping back and forth. This particular one only has a single thread color, so you're not going to be doing lots of thread changes with this. But that crimson thread really does pop against the lighter green. There is definitely a value factor there. We're down to 4 minutes. I'm holding my breath, making sure everything comes out perfectly. It looks like now we are doing the outline of the stocking itself. And that is officially the first embroidery formatted quilting design that we have done here in the studio. So I'm going to take this off of the machine and clip the threads, and I'll give you another look at the size of the stocking. Well, we have the stocking beautifully stitched out. As we've said, this is an embroidery formatted quilting design, so we do have the 3 layers, and this would be the front of the stocking. The back of the stocking, we could either do a second piece of this, but do it mirror image so that they would be matching the front and back, but you could use the outline as your sewing guide for piecing the 2 pieces together, or you could just use a blank piece of fabric without the additional layers, because you don't necessarily need it to be that thick if you're not going to quilt on the back side. The next step would be to follow the instructions on the website, we do have this free pattern for stockings, and this is available to print off. I printed this one off yesterday as a reminder to show you, and then you could go ahead and just finish up the stocking. So as I said, this is the first embroidery formatted video that we're going to be doing. We will be doing them. They will get progressively more intricate. They'll get more into the advanced types of designs, which would be like an edge-to-edge design, how to line those up. But those may be a few weeks off yet. I'm still learning exactly how to use the machine and the process itself. I'm refreshing my memory. One of the things that I always find so amusing with new technology is that they always say that it's intuitive, and they've made it more intuitive. And it appears that the more intuitive things become, the less I am able to manage understanding them. You give something to, like a telephone, to a small kid, and they could be in your bank account in a minute. But you give it to an adult and they can barely answer the text message. So I think it's funny that the more intuitive these machines become, the harder it is for me to decipher what I'm supposed to do next. And I will tell you, I've been studying different components and different parts of the new machine. One thing I haven't figured out yet is how to make the presser foot go up. There's no lever in the back to raise the presser foot that I can find. So that's one of the little things that I'm going to have to figure out, because it's so intuitive, I don't know what I'm doing. But I would like to know how many of you have ever used your embroidery module for any type of embroidery formatted quilting. I remember the first time that I did it years and years ago. I was told you had to use a water-soluble stabilizer in the back. And I did that. And when you washed the quilt, there's fibers, like little filaments that were all left on the back of the quilt. It wasn't 100% water-soluble. It was like 70% water-soluble. And I've never been able to use that quilt because of the way that it did it. So this hoop, being able to hoop the whole 3 layers without any stabilizer, is really quite fantastic. So I'm really happy with that. But I'd be curious to know how many of you have ever used embroidery formatted quilting designs and what kind of success you've had with them. Also, let us know what issues you have so that we could include tips on how to do that step of the process in upcoming videos in this series. So that's going to be it for today. You may or may not be able to see that I'm sweating. It's incredibly humid here today. I don't have the AC or the dehumidifier on because the video recorder picks those sounds up, and then people complain that they can't hear me. So I'm sweating so that you could hear me today. So thanks for stopping by the studio today. I hope this first step was informative. I hope that you enjoyed the stocking. I was actually going to sew the stocking today, but my machine here in the studio is completely covered in bundles of fabric and projects that I'm trying to organize for future videos. So I can't even get to the machine. So we'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by, and take care of each other.